It's terrifying. Nearly half of all daily car wrecks in South Carolina are caused by drunk or drugged drivers. I'm attorney Justin Love. If you've been hurt by a drunk, drugged, or hit-and-run driver, or they just caused you property damage to your house, wall, car, or more, call me today. I'll make them pay. Pay for your bills, pay for your lost wages, pay for your pain, and then pay more for punishment. Even if it happened up to 3 years ago. Our poor client's sitting here with a denied claim thinking she's getting nothing.
If you find the owner, that's the responsible party. That's what the law says.
It's a complete tactic, and it makes me so angry.
Minding her own business and gets hit by a speeding truck.
Time goes on, she's in the hospital, she doesn't speak English, she's away from her family.
We said, hey, there's damages here, this is something that's worth investigating.
And there was no insurance coverage on this case, and in some cases the law kind of stacked up against us.
There's no amount of money that will ever make this sweet little woman whole.
The first time anybody ever asked her what happened was when we asked her.
The client really felt heard and valued and knew that what happened to her was not okay.
If you've watched any of our videos, you've seen me talk about the way defense attorneys deny, delay, and devalue injury claims. Well, in today's Carolina Justice Report, we're going to talk about 3 ways this year, against all odds, we overcame these denied claims for our clients.
Welcome back. You saw Justin Lovely there just a second ago. He was really pumped about this this episode, so we had to give him the floor for the intro there.
Fired up. I'm still going.
So, of course, you guys know them already. Attorney Justin Lovely, Sarah Austin, and Amy Lawrence are joining us today. I'm excited about this topic because it's kind of like 3 big wins for us this year that normally maybe wouldn't have won, huh?
Yeah, really overcome the odds.
Yeah. So we've got 3 of these. So the first one we'll talk about is this bicyclist who was hit by a truck pulling a trailer, right?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about what happened here.
So in this case, we had a client who reached out to us and was found at fault. Okay. So when we at intake, they're telling us they're at fault. That's always a red flag because that's probably going to be a tough case.
Yeah.
Most attorneys probably wouldn't even sign the case going off of that. But he was hurt pretty good, pretty bad. And so I shouldn't say pretty good. He was hurt pretty bad.
Very bad.
We said, hey, there's damages here. This is something that's worth investigating.
Yeah.
And that's how we handle cases in our office. So
I don't even know how he could be listed at fault if he was the one hit.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, the police come out and do an investigation. And this is what we're fighting all the time.
We're going to use the word investigation very loosely.
Loosely. And that's when this client, when he called, said that, there's a video of it. I know that there's a video of it at the campground, and the police watched it. And so for us, at least for me, I'm like, well, even if you're marked at fault, I want to see the video. I want to see what actually happened.
Right.
And so that was a big piece of evidence, but we had to fight to get the video, right? They don't just want to turn it over. Mm-hmm. The police don't want to turn it over, and you don't get body cams. They'll only give you dash cams. And so it was a kind of a bit of a struggle until we finally got this video. But what it showed was our client on his bicycle, and then a truck pulling a camper tries to pass him, and the truck passes him, but the truck driver doesn't realize, I guess, how wide his camper is, and the camper hits our client and really injures him on his bike.
Yikes.
We see this a lot of times. We see it all the time, actually, with bicyclists, motorcyclists, and pedestrians, right? Mm-hmm. We see police officers time and time again marking these people at fault, even when they're not. As a matter of fact, some of these officers will call me now and they'll say, Amy, what do you think? I'm going to give you this scenario. And then sometimes they'll just be like running scenarios and they just want a lawyer's opinion. It has nothing to do with a case that's actually happened in front of them. They're like, okay, so bike is on on the sidewalk going one way, and then a man just pulls out of a parking lot and hits him on the sidewalk. Well, you still have a duty to yield. That car pulling out. So the bicyclist is not at fault. The car pulling out is at fault. And when I explain it to them, it's like, oh yeah, they're open to discussing it, which I think is really awesome because they realize they're getting it wrong so often.
Well, here's what happens, right? He's arriving. The ambulance has already got this dude gone to Grand Strand or gone to the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. He's sitting there hearing one side of the story, right? And he may even have wrote, I watched a video, and so that's what our client thinks. Mm-hmm. And so when we're hearing that, we're like, man, this might not be a good case. Mm-hmm. But we realize, no, he was just gone. He never talked to him. He never talked to him when he was in the hospital. He got one side of the story, marked that dude at fault, and moved on. And so that's the report we get. And most lawyers wouldn't even assign that case. And a lot of clients will call, and if they hear that, the lawyer, they get discouraged, right?
Right.
And so I'm proud of Sarah and I'm proud of our team. We dug in, man, and we where's this video? We got to find this video. The minute we saw the video, Sarah goes, watch this video. I watched it. Get a demand out now. We sent the demand, got paid, client's happy, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And that's a case that, people wouldn't have signed up if they don't have the local knowledge and know how to work these local, what's going on locally here in Myrtle Beach. And there would have been no recovery for the client, So, we're good. We working through our process. And
Well, this is a classic case where you guys kind of advocated for this person because he was wrongly cited at fault. So I'm glad that you guys really dug in and investigated it to say, no, you were right. So...
Yeah, and plus I think it just, like Justin talked about, the local knowledge. Like, I know this campground. I've been in there. I've seen the roads and the narrowness and all of these things. And so that really frames the way that I can shape the case because I know the area and I know the traffic in that area. You talk about motorcyclists, we talk about Bike Week. These insurance adjusters are often different
Columbia,
states.
Charleston,
Denying
Georgia.
claims for people when they have no idea how it, when it's Bike Week in Merle's Inlet, it's a completely different town than anywhere else, and
There's
different
barriers
traffic,
set
and there's
up,
people walking in the
patterns.
street all the time, and so just having that local knowledge of how things work around here, I think really helps our clients in the long run.
We've got local investigators dialed in, tenacious. When they meet with us, we give them task them a new case. We say, we got to get this video, canvass the area, get all the surveillance.
And
Are there any city cameras?
And talk to all the witnesses because there are
Talk to
some
them.
really great witnesses, but as we know in the summertime in Myrtle Beach, those people don't live here either. And so getting on it when it just happens, while they're still in town, when we can talk to them and get their statement makes a big difference.
Was
too.
it something that you got quickly?
Absolutely. And that local, being very local, having the local investigators, knowing where we're at, knowing where these accidents are happening, knowing how the officers who are overworked or putting people at fault, putting all that together gives us that local advantage to get the stuff for the client that we need.
Gives us that edge,
What were the injuries for the client? Is he okay now?
He's okay now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's making a pretty good recovery, but he went through it and had multiple surgeries, and so I'm happy to see him get back to work, and hopefully this will help him get there.
Yeah. How long did it take us to kind of wrap up this case?
The accident happened in June. And so we're in October.
So, yeah, pretty quick.
That is
pretty quick
very
turnaround.
Pretty quick. It could have happened a lot quicker if we would have
got the
video a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But
every case is not like that.
Sure.
Most cases takes a
Everybody's
long
different.
time. Every case is different. There's our disclaimer. But it was a big win, and so we're happy. And the client's happy. So.
Yeah, I'm proud of everybody. So let's move on to our second big win, dog bite on the face, which already sounds absolutely terrible. What happened with this case?
So this was a case where we had a client who was on commercial property at a festival. She gets bit, and normally those cases those cases are strict liability. But we had a scenario where we had a dog owner, we had somebody else who we thought could have been the dog owner, and then we had a scenario where they were on commercial property. So we had a commercial insurance policy at play. And of course, here's what happens. One starts pointing fingers. This one starts pointing blame. This one doesn't own the dog. This guy was borrowing the dog. And then our poor client's sitting here with a denied claim thinking she's getting nothing, but she's got half her face ripped off. A nightmare scenario.
It was an awful, awful injury.
Was it was she like petting the dog or something and it bit her, or?
Yeah, she was down. She was at
reached
this
down to
local
pet dog.
festival and petting a dog, and the dog just
The
went up and
dogs
boom,
were put
popped
out
her.
there to pet.
To be pet.
Right.
Gotcha.
So anyway, we got to start fighting the case, right? And we love dog bites in our office because they're strict liability, right? We prove up the damages. We get our clients into a plastic surgeon, get them worked up. We know all the experts in town, and get a good future cost projection, because a lot of the value in the medical value in a scar is obviously your future scar revision surgery if you need it, or any kind of plastic surgery. And so we get all that done for our clients as soon as they're ready to get that done.
Awesome.
And then we're operating under the assumption that we're going to get a good recovery for the client, and then of course the client starts getting jerked around by everybody pointing fingers. And that was the struggle.
I was going to ask, what is the hurdle that we kind of had to overcome?
because normally in dog bite cases it's strict liability, so it's easy. You find the dog owner.
And explain strict liability for everybody, because a lot of people don't really understand what that means.
So it's a statute, the strict liability statute. Normally, if you're going to prove a case, or a plaintiff's going to bring a case before court, you have to prove liability. You have to prove your injuries were caused by someone else, and that person is responsible for causing your injuries. With strict liability, The statute, the dog bite statute specifically says that if you own the dog or you have the dog in your care or keeping, so if you're watching the dog and feeding the dog and the dog hurts somebody, you're responsible. It doesn't matter if the person, you asked, was she petting the dog? It doesn't matter if she was petting the dog, she was walking by the dog. If your dog escaped your backyard, you're responsible. And I think the reason that the legislators put that into place is because you can't figure out the intentions of a dog.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You can't get inside the mind of a dog. And so the owners are responsible because someone's got to be responsible. And so that's what strict liability is. And normally, if you find the owner, that's the responsible party. That's what the law says. In this case, it was very difficult because people tried to say they didn't own the dog. It didn't happen in X location. And so it was a lot of finger pointing, and we really had to.
Homeowners was denying.
Yeah, we had to dig in. I mean, there was no insurance coverage on this case. And in some cases, the law kind of stacked up against us. But we were able to, we litigated it. I filed a bunch of motions. And it took a long time.
You argued the hell out of that case.
Yeah, it took a lot of time to get recovery for our client, but we ended up doing it. Really
So
against
who
all
was
odds.
liable in the end?
Everybody.
Everybody?
Yeah. Everybody
Everybody.
kicked in.
Everybody played up.
So we went
had a
from
hand
nobody
in that.
kicking in, everybody pointing fingers, to everybody kicked in, and she got a good recovery.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we're proud of that.
Huge. Crazy. Anything?
And
Any
she
other
wa-
notes on that
well,
one?
she was willing to understand this is going to take time. And here's another aspect to it. Some people just, they don't want it. They want to give up, or they don't want to keep digging in. But no, we filed a lawsuit. We're willing to go the distance. And we took I mean, they didn't settle that. We went to have a failed mediation, right? And still zero offer. And then finally, we hold their feet to the fire. You've heard me say this. They're denying, delaying, devaluing the case, right? We get a trial date. Magically, you get a phone call. Check 1. Phone call. Check 2. Didn't get a third phone call for a while. When they finally get that third phone call, bigger check number 3, client's happy, case is closed. And she's going to refer us to everybody she knows.
And insurance companies do that because they're trying to weed them out, right? They're trying to like exhaust them. A mom with 3 kids, you know, that's what they're doing. It's a complete tactic, and it makes me so angry. And then at the very end, they just wait it out, and then they pay the money. You know, and we fight like hell to get them to that point. And it's really hard, but it's so rewarding because we know that client really felt heard and valued and knew that what happened to her was not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it meant a lot to her that we fought for her for so long because it's kind of the opposite. You know, we talked about the one before this where the accident happened in June. We were able to get it resolved. With denied liability cases like this, even in dog bites where it's supposed to be easy, it can always take longer.
Yeah.
But we do that investigation from the beginning, and then we will you know, fight to the end.
We jumped
bitter
right
end.
in the very beginning. We had investigators on it. We go walk the grounds. We go ride the roads. We talk to everybody, and we prepare it just like we're going to try every case. And I think that's the difference between our firm and other firms, is that we do all the really hard and heavy lifting and the legwork in the very beginning, so that it makes it a lot easier as we go along.
What do you say to clients who kind of get discouraged along the way and they kind of want to give up, you know, because we don't know for a fact what's going to happen in the end. So what do you kind of tell them to keep them motivated or having hope?
But we just have to be honest with them, okay? We can't give them tight time frames because we don't know either.
Right.
We don't know until that, especially when we litigate a case, it can go on and on and on. We can only control what we can control, right? And so if you're the client, get your treatment, right? Because you can control that. You got to go to the doctor. If you start missing your doctor visits, then I can't help you until you get done treating, right? You have to be released from the doctor. So that's step 1. And then on our end, when we start litigating a case, well, we get the complaint filed, we got our discovery answered, we get deposition scheduled, and try to get to that mediation date. That's the first point when we can try to get this thing worked out.
Right.
And then after that, you know, is there any motions, anybody else we have to depose after a mediation, just in preparation for a potential trial.
Yeah.
And as long as we're driving the train on our end, we're going as fast as we can do. And it is discouraging, but we're honest with them. Look, hey, this is the next stage. This is what's happening next. And we're always saying, this happens. Here's the 2 ways it could go after this. Because everything could throw a curveball at us during litigation. We don't know what the defense is going to do, if they're going to file a certain motion. But we control what we can't control. Be honest and open with the client. Keep that communication going constantly, and all the clients are happy.
And I think what we do best is no one wants to be in the dark about something affecting their life, right? And so we talk to our clients more than, they say that you know, I've had a lawyer for this or this, even like down to a speeding ticket, whether it's a car wreck or whatever, a dog bite. We are constantly talking to our clients, and we've got this open line of communication, not just with our paralegals, but with our whole staff and our attorneys. And so we're constantly talking to them, educating them, because education is power, right? And the more you know is the more you know. And so we're constantly telling them about what's going on, keeping them in the know. And so when you have that open line of communication with your client, then it's really, they don't feel wore down by the insurance company, if that makes any sense.
And sometimes they just, you know, and especially in this case, you know, I was getting more discouraged sometimes too. We like ebbed and flowed, where my client really, and then in turn motivated me to keep going, and then I motivated her to keep going. So you kind of get to know your client, and then you kind of pick each other up as you take these hits.
You totally
until you get
bond.
to the end. And so it's not always them that are feeling discouraged. Sometimes it's us. Because it's a long process. But as long as we're having those conversations, I think we have great clients. And the ones who are willing to go the distance and to wait it out and say no at mediation are the most courageous clients that we have.
And I fire everybody up every 30 days in the office, so we don't let anybody get...
Total, like Tony Robbins, Ric Flair, woo, let's do this. Get it going on kind of thing.
That is true. I've seen this firsthand. So moving on to our third big win for the year. And of course, we have lots of wins, but these are unique cases that may not have gone through that we overcame. So for the third one, it is about a pedestrian who was hit on a road. We're going with a residential road. Some say it's a different kind of road.
Right. Yeah.
But what happened here?
So we had a pedestrian, a Hispanic client, and she was walking home on a residential road and minding her own business and gets hit by a speeding truck. Catastrophic injury. Okay, she's a Hispanic client. There was Hispanic prejudice at play here. She was again found at fault by an officer who does not investigate. She's taken immediately to the emergency room. The officer never sees her, never talks to her. Talks to the truck driver in the middle of the night, right after the sun's gone down, and again finds her at fault. The family had no idea they could even possibly bring a claim because they've been told that she was at fault, right? And while this whole time she's laying up in the hospital for 3 months, 3 months total.
Oh my gosh.
Reaches out to us. We retain the client and immediately start an investigation, and then. Sarah stuck her claws in it and just started digging in hard. Well, go ahead.
This is one of my favorite, not my favorite cases, because this is a horrible thing happened, but where I really got to make a difference and make a change in this client's life, because she does not speak English and she was with her friends. So she had 4 people around her, and they lived in this neighborhood, and they were
the only one that got hit?
She got hit. But they were all there, so they all saw it happen. And the police officer comes up, and he doesn't speak Spanish. The ambulance takes her off. He doesn't even ask any of them what happened. And he just takes the word of the white English-speaking man who hit her, and is like, oh, she must have just been in the roadway and you didn't see her. Not at a crosswalk. She's at fault. And so then time goes on. She's in the hospital. She doesn't speak English. She's away from her family.
And this woman is paralyzed, you guys.
And so her family doesn't reach out to us. And then we've got Spanish-speaking paralegals in our office who are able to call up her friends, her witnesses, and ask them what happened so that I could put that in the report. And then we've also got police officers who, and I think that's what we kind of talked about with bicyclists, because I've been treating bicyclists and people on mopeds just like pedestrians, because they're not really in a vehicle or a motorcycle or anything like that. But I guess the traffic laws, if you're not in a crosswalk, you're going to get a ticket and you're at fault because you're not in the crosswalk. And I guess in criminal court, that's how it holds up, and they find people guilty all the time. But in civil court, when you're trying to prove who's at fault for causing these injuries, it's a different standard. And the civil law says the drivers have a duty to see whether you're in the crosswalk or not. So if someone's in the middle of the roadway and they're not in the crosswalk, that doesn't mean you just get to plow through them. And you're not at fault. You have to stop because there's something in the roadway. I mean, you have to stop when a deer's in the road. Otherwise, it's your fault if you hit a deer, but it's not your fault if you hit a person. And that just blows my mind. But so in this case, she called us a lot later because she didn't think she had a claim. But we were able to get on the phone with the witnesses. Thankfully, they were there and translate their statements, and also just do some investigation into this driver who I found out had a ton of speeding tickets, even on the same road as early as like 10 days before this.
Wow.
And so he just constantly speeding through a neighborhood. And so the insurance
commercial
company,
truck.
Yeah.
It's a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
So and you're held to a higher duty. It's not just you're driving a car.
And
Yeah.
I mean, thank God he was in a commercial truck, because then we would have been looking at a much lower policy, and
Right.
with such horrific injuries, then she would have. I mean, there's no amount of money that will ever make this sweet little woman whole, but there's a lot more to get when we've got a commercial truck.
Yeah. So we were able to get that without even filing a lawsuit. And that was just basically because we did the investigation that the police department didn't. And it was like open and shut, case closed. I asked this guy what happened, and I can't understand anybody else. And that's kind of how he wraps it up. But there was a lot more to that story.
Well, I'm so grateful for you guys, but it also makes me really sad of like how many times does this happen and there's nobody there to like fight for these people, you know?
It's happening every day, man.
Yeah.
And so
All
what
day, every
everybody should get out of this episode is, even though your case is denied, don't give up. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. I was telling Justin earlier that all of my pedestrian cases, every single pedestrian case I've had, the pedestrian's been marked at fault. And we've been able to get them compensated for their injuries just by showing, you know, the civil case law that says you're not at fault versus the traffic stuff. So the police are going to always mock, in my opinion. I try to talk to the officers, you know, and make them understand.
I'm
but
slowly educating all of them.
don't get
seen our
discouraged.
that.
Yeah, don't get discouraged if you're marked at fault and something, you know, give us a call anyway, because it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Well, is that something that should be changed with the traffic laws? I mean, does that doesn't make sense, because
It's
if
stupid.
they're following those laws,
It's stupid, and we hate it. But it's a lot harder to change laws than it is to change the amount of the insurance who the insurance and defense attorney and insurance
Yeah.
companies.
But also
we can show them the civil law.
Yeah, thinking of the purpose of the law, right? The traffic law is because you want to encourage people to walk in the crosswalk, because
Right.
there's less likely that they're going to get hit. And so you want to give people tickets to make them remember to walk in the crosswalk. The civil side is totally different.
is
So-
there ever an instance where the pedestrian would be at fault?
If they threw themselves in front of the car.
on
Like
purpose?
if they,
On
if
purpose.
they like ran out.
Which, I mean, we've seen a case like that. It happened to be a police officer's car here in our county. God bless, there was a dash cam that we could see, and they literally, it was like suicide by jumping yourself in front of a car, but that's the exception to
Yeah.
the rule. I mean, I've heard of one of those in my 16 years of practicing law. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's not like, remember, we're not trying to, if you hit a pedestrian in the roadway or something and you're at fault, your insurance company's at fault, civilly liable. You're not going
Right.
to go to prison for hitting a pedestrian. It's still an accident.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's out there
accidents happen.
purposefully trying to hit people. But it's important for pedestrians to know that even if you're not in the crosswalk, because we had a lot of people drinking and walking, which I will also
Trying to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
right, trying to do the right thing by not driving, you know, and we live on Ocean Boulevard down there. You're supposed to walk. That's what it's for.
just keep a proper lookout.
Keep a lookout. Drivers have to keep a lookout. That's our duty. We're driving a 2,000-pound car, so it's more responsibility.
Yeah. So with all of these cases, really one of the main hurdles was that they were all kind of cited at fault, right?
Yeah.
All of the clients were cited at fault.
Overcame the odds of an at-fault driver who was not really at fault. Turning the tides.
Yeah. Were there any other factors in this case, this last one with the pedestrian, that made it a difficult case, or was it really just proving that they were not at fault?
Well, the language barrier.
The language barrier.
The language barrier,
Yeah.
which we're lucky to have
Paralegals
who speak
and
Spanish,
yeah.
and also are trustworthy. I think because they could speak to her so freely and really tell her. And really, I think that's the first time anybody ever asked her. She's paralyzed in the hospital. That's the first time anybody ever asked her what happened, was when we asked her. You know, months later.
Wow.
And so the language barrier, I think, was a big deal.
Wow. Well, obviously, I'm really glad that we brought light to some of these things, not just to show what great work you guys do, but also these are things that I think are commonly misunderstood by people. So I think it's good to kind of show how these cases are worked up, and that pedestrians aren't at fault, and, you know, the bicyclist isn't at fault. And even I always find the dog bite scenario is very interesting about, you know, whose dog is it, and who, you know,
Yeah.
who's liable for this. So, terrible stories, but I'm glad that we've been able to fight for them.
Yeah, and if you've been marked at fault in an accident, you really feel like it wasn't your fault, whether you're a pedestrian or whatever that is, call us. We'll talk about it. We'll run through the scenario. And if you are at fault and we think that you're at fault, we'll tell you why we think you're at fault and the law that supports it and why. And that way, at least you'll sleep better at night knowing that you have an educated answer, you know?
Yeah.
Or if you've called another law firm and you've been turned down by their intake department, let us look at it. Get a second opinion. As long as we can look at it, within the statute of limitations, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Earlier is better, obviously, because witnesses, their memories fade, and investigation sites are hard to get down and view and do our investigation. But the quicker the better.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at it.
But we're not afraid to dig in there and
No, we love it.
take time to research.
We love
The
digging.
sleeves, yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for chatting about these today and also for what you guys are doing to help people. Thank you guys for watching today. Of course, if you have questions, just like they said, call us, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us everywhere on social media and online. We're on Twitter, social media, like I already said, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us online at justiceislovely.com. Thanks so much for watching today. Carolina Justice Reports drop every Tuesday at 2 p.m. See you next time.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely, the lovely law firm.
The Marine Corps determined that from around 1953 through 1987, the water supply at Camp Lejeune had been heavily contaminated with volatile organic compounds and carcinogenic chemicals. The most troubling chemicals found were trichloroethylene and tetrachloroethylene. You will hear these referred to as TCE and PCE. These chemicals are called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. These chemicals are used for dry cleaning purposes, and much of the water contamination was attributed to an off-base dry cleaner that existed before the Marine base was even open. There were multiple sources for this toxic water, however. For instance, these same chemicals were also used to clean weapons and machinery. The industrial chemicals that were contaminating the Camp Lejeune water supply are known to be very, very toxic to the human body and have been linked to cancer, birth defects, and neurological disorders. Scientific and medical evidence has shown that chronic exposure to the chemicals TCE and PCE can cause increased rates of certain types of cancer and other health conditions. It is important that you lived or worked on the base from 1953 through 1987 for at least 30 days. You may have a loved one who served at Camp Lejeune and has since passed away. If you think your loved one passed away due to the toxic exposure at Camp Lejeune, we are reviewing those cases as well. Miscarriages by military wives were extremely common back at Camp Lejeune. We are handling those cases. Be sure to watch all of our videos on our Camp Lejeune water contamination claim playlist to learn about these cases and how the lovely law firm Injury Lawyers can help you.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely, the lovely law firm.
When you are hurt in a crash, you want local representation. The lovely law firm Injury Lawyers are local here in the community with offices in Myrtle Beach and Charleston. We have represented thousands of clients over the years and recovered millions in compensation for our personal injury clients. You only get one shot at this, so give us a call and get your case started today. 843-839-4111.
When life